15 elite cybersecurity firms swept the servers. Top auditors from global giants found nothing. Helios Data Solutions was bleeding millions, and its Alpha CEO was running out of time. Nobody saw the invisible theft until an underpaid Omega courier dropped off a package, glanced at the screen, and solved it. Corporate boardrooms on the 80th floor of the Helios Data Solutions building rarely smelled like defeat. Usually they reeked of expensive cologne, freshly brewed espresso, and the sharp, ozone-like pheromones of triumphant alphas. Today, however, the air was thick with the suffocating scent of burnt cedar and dark roast coffee, the distinct aggressive signature of an alpha on the edge of violence. Arthur Pendleton, the billionaire founder and CEO of Helios, paced at the head of the massive mahogany table. His piercing blue eyes locked onto the projection screen, where lines of financial data and routing protocols scrolled endlessly into the abyss. For 6 months, a phantom had been draining his company's offshore accounts. We were not talking about a few thousands. Helios was hemorrhaging close to $40 million, siphoned off in microscopic fractions of cents during high-frequency trades. It was a digital bleed-out. "Explain it to me again, Richard." Arthur growled his voice, a low, chest-rumbling baritone that made the betas in the room flinch. "Explain how Anderson and Croft, consulting the firm that supposedly secures the Pentagon's auxiliary servers, cannot find a leak in my trading algorithms." Richard Garris, a lead auditor who normally commanded boardrooms with his own robust alpha presence, tugged nervously at his collar. His pheromones smelled sour, laced with anxiety. "Mr. Pendleton, we have deployed our most advanced heuristic models. We've brought in 15 separate independent analysts from top-tier firms, cybersecurity experts from Harrison Finch forensic accountants from the Vanguard Group. The code is clean, the ledgers balance on our end. The money simply vanishes in the latency period between the transaction order and the execution. It's like a ghost in the machine." "Ghosts don't open offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands, Richard." Arthur slammed his hands onto the table, the sharp crack echoing off the floor-to-ceiling windows. "Someone is stealing from me. An inside job masked by an external shell. And if you 15 so-called experts can't find it, I will fire every single one of you and burn Anderson and Croft to the ground in the business press." Sitting beside Richard, the chief financial officer of Helios, a slick beta named David Higgins cleared his throat. "Arthur, please. We need to maintain composure. The board is getting anxious. Perhaps we need to accept that this is a highly sophisticated state-sponsored hack. It might be beyond commercial auditing capabilities." Arthur's eyes narrowed. He didn't trust Higgins, though he couldn't pinpoint why. His alpha instincts, usually sharp as a razor, were clouded by exhaustion and the relentless stress of the missing millions. Miles below the towering glass spire of Helios Leo Mercer was battling his own version of hell. Rain lashed against his high-visibility jacket as he pedaled his electric cargo bike through the chaotic downtown traffic. Leo was 24, brilliant and utterly exhausted. Beneath the thick layers of waterproof canvas and a heavy wool scarf, he wore 2 industrial-grade scent blockers. They dug into his neck, irritating his pale skin, but they were absolutely necessary. Leo was an Omega. In the cutthroat, alpha-dominated world of corporate logistics, being an unbonded Omega was a liability. Being an Omega without access to premium suppressants was a death sentence for any professional ambition. Once upon a time, Leo had been a prodigy. He was admitted to MIT's applied mathematics program at 16, seeing numbers not just as figures, but as colors, shapes, and cascading architectural structures in his mind. Synesthesia combined with an off-the-charts IQ made him a savant in cryptanalysis. But life rarely respects potential. When his mother fell terminally ill, the medical bills piled up. Leo was forced to drop out trading his scholarship for immediate, fast cash gig work to keep his family afloat. Now he was a courier for Ironclad Dispatches, a specialized delivery service that handled highly confidential physical data transfers for paranoid tech firms. Dispatch to Mercer. The radio clipped to his collar buzzed. "You have a code-red secure delivery for Helios Data Solutions. Executive floor. Signature required from Arthur Pendleton himself. Do not mess this up, Leo. They are breathing down my neck." "Copy that," Leo muttered, wiping rainwater from his visor. Arriving at the Helios Tower, Leo bypassed the standard reception and took the freight entrance reserved for secure couriers. He went through the biometric scanners, shivering as the cold air conditioning of the building hit his damp clothes. He stepped into the private elevator, clutching a heavily sealed titanium briefcase containing hard-copy cryptographic keys that Arthur Pendleton had desperately ordered from a secondary security vault. As the elevator shot upward, the air pressure shifted, popping Leo's ears. But it wasn't just the altitude that made his stomach churn. As the doors chimed open on the 80th floor, a wall of pure, aggressive alpha pheromones hit him like a physical blow. The scent blockers on Leo's neck whirred faintly, struggling to filter out the overwhelming smell of burnt cedar and dark roast coffee. It made Leo's knees buckle for a fraction of a second. His Omega biology, repressed and starved, instantly recognized a dominant, distressed alpha nearby. He forced his body to remain upright, gripping the briefcase handle so tightly his knuckles turned white. "Just get the signature. Get in. Get out. Get paid," Leo chanted in his head. He walked down the plushly carpeted hallway toward the main boardroom. The glass doors were frosted, but he could hear the shouting bleeding through the heavy acoustic seals. Security guards flanked the entrance, but recognizing the Ironclad Dispatch uniform and the encrypted briefcase, they tapped their earpieces and pushed the heavy glass doors open for him. Leo stepped into the lion's den. Heavy silence immediately descended upon the boardroom as the doors clicked shut behind Leo. 15 pairs of exhausted, irritable eyes snapped toward him. The tension in the room was so thick, it felt like wading through wet concrete. Arthur Pendleton stood at the head of the table. His suit jacket discarded his dress shirt rolled up at the sleeves, revealing corded forearms. His chest heaved slightly. When his blue eyes landed on Leo, the courier felt a sudden, terrifying jolt travel down his spine. "Who the hell authorized an interruption?" Arthur demanded, his voice dangerously low. CFO David Higgins immediately stood up. "Security, get this boy out of here. We are in the middle of a classified audit. Ironclad Dispatches." Leo stated, fighting to keep his voice steady despite the oppressive alpha aura radiating from Arthur. "Secure delivery of the off-site cryptographic hard keys. I was instructed to hand them directly to Arthur Pendleton. Signature required." Arthur sighed, rubbing his temples. The aggressive scent of his burnt cedar pheromones spiked, laced with a bitter tang of exhaustion. "Bring it here. Let's just get this over with." Leo walked the length of the long boardroom table. He kept his eyes averted, a survival mechanism he had perfected over the years to avoid challenging posturing alphas. As he reached Arthur, he placed the titanium briefcase on the table and handed over the digital datapad for a signature. While Arthur hastily scrawled his name on the screen, Leo's eyes naturally drifted upward. The massive projection screen covering the entire back wall was displaying the real-time transaction logs of Helios's primary trading algorithm. To the 15 experts in the room, it was a terrifying waterfall of hexadecimal codes, server ping times, and financial routing numbers that yielded no answers. But to Leo, it wasn't just numbers. It was a painting, and the painting had a massive glaring tear right down the middle of it. His synesthesia flared instantly. Most of the code was a smooth, flowing sequence of deep blues and cool greens, the natural rhythm of optimized trading software. But every few seconds, a jagged, bright crimson sequence flashed violently in his mind's eye. "That's a Fibonacci delay," Leo whispered, the words slipping out of his mouth before his conscious mind could stop them. The pen in Arthur's hand stopped moving. "What did you say?" Arthur asked, slowly, turning his head to look at the soaking wet courier. David Higgins scoffed loudly. "Arthur, please sign the pad so the delivery boy can leave. We don't have time for this." Leo realized his mistake. He should have kept his mouth shut. He reached for the datapad, intending to snatch it and run, but Arthur's large hand suddenly clamped down on Leo's wrist. The touch was electric. Despite the wet fabric of Leo's jacket, the heat from the Alpha's skin sent a shocking wave of warmth straight to Leo's suppressed Omega core. For a split second, Leo's scent blockers faltered under the sheer proximity of such a powerful Alpha. A microscopic wisp of Leo's true scent, wild honeysuckle and rain, slipped out. Arthur's pupils dilated instantly. His nostrils flared. He looked at Leo, really looked at him, seeing past the oversized jacket, the wet hair and the thick glasses. He released Leo's wrist but didn't look away. "Repeat what you just said," Arthur commanded. It wasn't a corporate demand. It was an Alpha's absolute directive. "I shouldn't have—" Leo stammered, his heart hammering against his ribs. "Speak." Leo swallowed hard, his eyes darting back to the screen. The urge to solve the puzzle overrode his survival instinct. "Your auditors are looking for missing money. They are looking at the volume of the trades. But the money isn't missing in the volume. It's missing in the time." He pointed a shaking finger at the cascading wall of data. "Look at the latency pings. The system records a micro-trade at 0.003 seconds. But every eighth trade, the latency jumps to 0.005 seconds. It's a 2-millisecond gap. In high-frequency trading, 2 milliseconds is a lifetime. You're bleeding capital into that gap." Richard Garris, the lead auditor, let out a condescending laugh. "Kid latency fluctuations are normal. Server load network congestion. Not when the latency gaps follow a perfect mathematical sequence." Leo cut him off, his confidence suddenly surging as he stepped fully into his element. He walked right up to the screen, tracing an invisible line over the scrolling numbers. The gaps occur at trades numbered 23, 58, 13, 21. It's the Fibonacci sequence. It's an artificial latency loop. Someone hard-coded a ghost protocol to delay specific trades by 2 milliseconds, scrape the differential, and funnel it out through an encrypted port. Silence slammed into the room again. The 15 experts stared at the screen. "He's right," whispered one of the forensic accountants from the back. "God, he's right. The timestamp anomalies line up perfectly." Arthur's chest stopped heaving. The heavy burnt smell of his pheromones began to clear, replaced by something sharper, more focused. He turned to Leo, his blue eyes blazing with a mixture of shock and intense fascination. "If it's an artificial loop, where is the exit port? I don't know your network architecture." Leo said, his adrenaline fading, leaving him suddenly hyper-aware of the danger he was in. "But if you track the packet loss exactly on the 55th trade of the sequence, you'll find the IP address of the shadow ledger." Arthur immediately spun toward the main terminal, his fingers flying across the keyboard. Lines of code vanished, replaced by a command prompt. He ran the specific search parameter Leo had just deduced in less than 60 seconds. The screen blinked black. Then, a single internal network destination flashed in bright green text. "Destination route local server / debt executive finance / secure. Login D_Higgins_01. The blood drained entirely from David Higgins's face. The slick baiter took a sudden staggering step backward toward the heavy glass doors. "Security!" Arthur said, his voice deadly calm, echoing with terrifying authority. "Lock the doors. Nobody leaves this room." Two massive Alpha guards immediately blocked the exit. David Higgins collapsed into a chair, burying his face in his hands. The 15 elite experts stood in stunned, horrified silence as they realized the impossible hack they had been searching for had been orchestrated by the man sitting next to them. Arthur didn't look at Higgins. He slowly turned back to the soaking wet courier who had just saved his billion-dollar empire. He stepped closer, invading Leo's personal space, lowering his head until his lips were inches from the courier's ear. "What is your name?" Arthur murmured, his voice rumbling deep in his chest. "Leo," the courier whispered. "Leo Mercer." Arthur inhaled deeply, confirming the faint, intoxicating scent of wild honeysuckle hidden beneath the industrial blockers. "Well, Leo Mercer, you just put 15 of the world's best experts to shame in under 3 minutes, and I think we are going to have a very long, very private conversation." Chaos erupted in the boardroom the moment the secure doors locked. David Higgins, realizing his grand embezzlement scheme was over, scrambled backward, knocking his heavy leather chair to the floor. The elite auditors from Anderson and Croft men and women, who billed thousands of dollars an hour, shrank back against the glass walls, utterly humiliated. They had spent weeks running sophisticated diagnostics on Helios Data Solutions network, only for a soaking wet delivery boy to unravel the mystery in 3 minutes, using nothing but raw mental calculation. Arthur Pendleton ignored the commotion. He signaled the 2 Alpha security guards standing by the door. "Detain Mr. Higgins, confiscate his phone, his keycards, and sever his network access immediately. Call the federal authorities." As Higgins was dragged out, screaming obscenities and threatening lawsuits, Arthur turned his cold, piercing gaze toward the remaining experts. "Your contracts are terminated," he stated, his voice devoid of any warmth. "Leave my building. If any of you speak a word of what transpired here to the press, my legal team will bury you." Within 5 minutes, the boardroom was empty, save for Arthur and the shivering Omega standing near the projection screen. Leo Mercer hugged his damp jacket tightly around his slender frame. The adrenaline crash was hitting him hard. His synesthesia, which had flared so brilliantly moments before, faded back into a dull ache behind his eyes. Worse, the cheap scent blockers plastered to his neck were beginning to fail entirely under the sheer pressure of Arthur's commanding pheromones. The heavy scent of burnt cedar and dark roast coffee was intoxicating, pulling at Leo's basic biological instincts to submit to seek comfort from the powerful Alpha in the room. Arthur slowly approached, his sharp eyes evaluating every inch of the young man. "You are freezing," Arthur noted, stripping off his own suit jacket. Without asking permission, he draped the heavy dry wool over Leo's shoulders. The jacket was infused with Arthur's scent. Leo gasped softly, his knees trembling as the warm, protective aroma enveloped him. "Thank you," Leo whispered instinctively, pulling the lapels closer. "My private office is through those double doors," Arthur said, gesturing toward the back of the boardroom. "Go inside. There is a private washroom with dry towels. I'm going to order coffee and food. We have a lot to discuss." Leo Mercer. 10 minutes later, Leo sat on a plush leather sofa in an office that looked more like a modern art museum than a workspace. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a dizzying view of the city skyline. He had dried his hair and wrapped himself in Arthur's oversized sweater, which he had found in a wardrobe. Arthur walked in, carrying a tray with 2 steaming mugs of black coffee and a plate of pastries. He set them down on the glass coffee table and took a seat opposite Leo, leaning forward, resting his elbows on his knees. The Alpha's posture was relaxed, yet completely focused. "I ran a background check on you while you were drying off." Arthur began, his voice smooth and methodical. "I used my clearance with the Equifax executive tier and the National Student Clearinghouse. You are full of surprises, Leo. Admitted to MIT at 16. Perfect scores in advanced cryptanalysis and algorithmic logic. You were on track to be one of the top cybersecurity architects in the country. And then 2 years ago, you just vanished from the academic grid." Leo looked down at his coffee mug, his pale cheeks flushing. "Life happens, Mr. Pendleton. Arthur. Call me Arthur." The CEO tilted his head, his nostrils flaring slightly, as he caught the sweet, subtle aroma of wild honeysuckle battling against the acrid smell of Leo's blockers. "According to the medical debt registries, your mother was admitted to Johns Hopkins Hospital for an experimental and highly expensive autoimmune treatment around the exact same time you dropped out. You traded a genius-level education to ride a bicycle in the rain so you could pay her medical bills." Leo felt a defensive spark ignite in his chest. "I did what I had to do. The gig economy pays cash daily. I couldn't wait for a corporate internship to clear while she was hooked up to machines." "It wasn't a criticism, Leo," Arthur said softly, his pheromones shifting from aggressive cedar to a warm, soothing sandalwood. It was a deliberate biological attempt to calm the stressed Omega. It was an observation of extraordinary loyalty and resilience. But it is also an unforgivable waste of your intellect. The sequence you identified on that screen, 15 senior analysts missed it. You saw it in seconds. "It's just how my brain works," Leo mumbled, relaxing slightly, as the soothing pheromones washed over him. "I see patterns as colors and structures. Higgins was clever. He built a fractal anomaly. It only executed the theft when the trading volume perfectly matched a specific algorithmic weight. It was practically invisible." Arthur's eyes darkened with anger at the mention of his former CFO. "Higgins was a parasite, but he wasn't a mastermind. He didn't write that code. He isn't smart enough. He was a Trojan horse for someone else." Arthur stood up and paced to the window, looking out over the rain-slicked city. "Helios Data Solutions handles the back-end infrastructure for some of the biggest financial institutions in the world. Whoever wrote that Fibonacci loop didn't just want my money. They wanted to test a back door into our servers. If they can crack Helios, they can crack our clients." He turned back to Leo, his expression dead serious. "I need to find the architect of that code, and I need to secure my network before the morning bell rings on Wall Street. I want you to do it." Leo's eyes widened. "Me, Arthur. I'm a courier. I don't have the clearance, the credentials. I am the CEO." Arthur interrupted, his voice echoing with absolute authority. "I make the credentials. As of this exact moment, you are the head of cybersecurity for Helios. I will clear your mother's entire debt at Johns Hopkins by midnight. I will set you up with a salary that rivals my own board members. And—" Arthur paused, his gaze dropping to the irritated skin on Leo's neck. "I will provide you with medical-grade synthesized scent blockers. No Omega should have to suffer those cheap burning patches." Leo's breath hitched. The offer was life-changing. It was everything he had prayed for during those grueling, freezing nights delivering packages. But the look in Arthur's eyes promised something more, a dangerous, thrilling entanglement with an alpha who saw his mind before he saw his biology. "Okay," Leo breathed out, his pulse racing. "Show me your mainframe." The executive server room hummed with the frigid, deafening roar of industrial cooling units. Rows of black monolithic server racks blinked with thousands of tiny LED lights processing terabytes of financial data every millisecond. Leo sat at the master terminal, his fingers flying across the mechanical keyboard in a blur of motion. The thick glasses were pushed up on his nose, his eyes darting across 3 massive curved monitors. He was in his element, fully submerged in the digital ocean. Arthur stood directly behind him, acting as a physical shield against the overwhelming sensory input of the server farm. The Alpha kept his hands firmly planted on the back of Leo's chair, radiating a steady, grounding heat. "I'm tracing the exit node Higgins used," Leo shouted over the roar of the cooling fans. He didn't just dump the money into an offshore account, he routed it through a decentralized web. "Can you follow it?" Arthur asked, leaning in close so his deep voice vibrated right next to Leo's ear. "Yes, but they are using heavy obfuscation," Leo replied, his brow furrowing. "They are bouncing the packets through Amazon Web Services proxy servers in Frankfurt, then splitting the hashes across dummy corporations. Wait, look at this routing signature." Leo highlighted a block of code that glowed an angry, toxic yellow in his mind's eye. "They are mimicking the dark pool trading algorithms of Citadel Securities. They are trying to hide the stolen funds inside massive, legitimate, high-frequency trade volumes. It's brilliant. If the money blends into Citadel's daily flow, it becomes completely untraceable." "Then we have to shut the port down now," Arthur commanded. "No!" Leo yelled, stopping Arthur from reaching for the hard kill switch on the terminal. "If we sever the connection, the Ghost protocol will detect the intrusion and automatically wipe the server logs. We will lose the money permanently, and we won't know who the actual buyer is. What is the alternative? We trap them inside their own loop," Leo said, his eyes wild with adrenaline. "I'm going to rewrite the Fibonacci sequence in real time. When their system pings our server to extract the next batch of funds, I will attach a tracking worm to the payload. It will follow the money all the way back to their physical mainframe, lock their servers, and reroute our stolen capital back to our central ledger." Arthur stared at the Omega, pure ore radiating from his features. "Can you code that fast?" "Watch me," Leo smirked. For the next 20 minutes, it was a brutal digital dogfight. Leo typed relentlessly, building complex architectural firewalls and aggressive tracking worms on the fly. The invasive protocol fought back, recognizing the intrusion and attempting to initiate a system-wide purge. Red warning lights flashed across Leo's monitors. "They are trying to dump the data," Leo gasped, his heart hammering, as he fought to block the outgoing traffic. Suddenly, a wave of intense dizziness washed over Leo. The cheap scent blockers on his neck, already compromised by the rain and sweat, finally gave out entirely. They short-circuited with a tiny spark, leaving Leo totally exposed. The icy, sterile air of the server room slammed into his heightened Omega senses, but worse was the overwhelming presence of Arthur's dominant alpha pheromones. Without the blockers, the raw intensity of the alpha's aura hit Leo like a freight train. His body instinctively reacted, a deep, primal heat pooling in his lower stomach. His vision blurred, his hands shaking violently as they hovered over the keyboard. "Leo!" Arthur yelled instantly, recognizing the biological crisis. The sharp, sweet scent of wild honeysuckle flooded the server room, completely overriding the metallic smell of the machines. It was intoxicating, pure, and desperately distressed. "I can't focus," Leo whimpered, tears prickling his eyes, as his Omega instincts screamed at him to submit to seek shelter, completely derailing his logical thought processes. "The firewall. It's breaking." Arthur didn't hesitate. He pulled Leo's chair back slightly, stepping directly between Leo and the freezing air vents. He wrapped his large, warm hands over Leo's shaking fingers, holding them steady over the keyboard. "Breathe," Arthur commanded, but his voice was completely devoid of aggression. It was a low, rumbling purr, a sound designed by nature to soothe and protect a mate. He deliberately flared his own pheromones, shifting them from commanding cedar to a rich, warm amber and dark chocolate. He blanketed Leo in his scent, creating an invisible protective cocoon around the panicked Omega. "I've got you," Arthur murmured against Leo's hair. "You are safe. I am right here. Let my scent ground you. Look at the screen, Leo. Just the code. Nothing else." Anchored by the Alpha's physical touch and the overwhelming comfort of his protective pheromones, Leo's panic began to subside. His breathing synchronized with Arthur's deep, steady chest. The blurring colors in his mind sharpened back into crisp lines of code. "Okay." Leo breathed his hands, steadying beneath Arthur's. "I have it." With a final furious flurry of keystrokes, Leo hit the execute command. The screens froze. For 3 agonizing seconds, the server room felt like it was holding its breath. Then the monitors flashed brilliant green. "Payload intercepted. Target mainframe locked. Funds rerouting $39,840,000 recovered. Target IP identified. Apex Global Syndicate." Leo slumped back against Arthur's chest, completely exhausted, gasping for air. Apex Global. Arthur read the screen, a dark, victorious smile spreading across his face. "Our biggest competitor. They just handed me the evidence to destroy them." Arthur gently turned Leo's chair around. The CEO knelt on the cold floor, looking up into the tired, beautiful face of the Omega, who had just saved his empire. He reached up gently, peeling the ruined scent blockers from Leo's neck, tossing them aside. "You will never wear these again," Arthur promised softly, his thumb brushing against Leo's pale skin. "Tomorrow I am moving your mother to the VIP wing at Johns Hopkins, and you are taking the corner office next to mine." Leo looked down into Arthur's striking blue eyes, feeling the undeniable magnetic pull between them. It wasn't just biology. It was the profound connection of 2 brilliant minds finding their match. "Is that an order, Mr. CAO?" Leo whispered, a tired smile tugging at his lips. Arthur leaned in, pressing a soft, reverent kiss to the pulse point on Leo's neck, right where his sweet scent was strongest. "No, Leo," Arthur murmured, his eyes filled with fierce, unwavering devotion. "That is a promise from your Alpha." The corporate wolves thought they could steal an empire, but they never accounted for the brilliant mind of an Omega. Arthur and Leo's journey from boardroom tension to absolute devotion proves that true power lies in intellect and loyalty. If this high-stakes Omegaverse thriller kept you on the edge of your seat, hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and share this video with your friends. Drop a comment below on what trope we should tackle next.